Okay, so we are going to get started. This is the Community Development Block Grant 2021 Grant Administration Workshop. And I am happy that you all could make it today. Thank you very much.
I love your neck. Sitting there with the stogie dangling.
Some people. Just putting everyone on mute just to make sure. Again, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and I will answer those. Okay. So these are our contact information. Patty Herzog is the director of the Community Development Block Grant. She is our big boss, actually. And then you have me, the CDBG program administrator, and then Dana Dale. She is our CDBG program specialist regarding draw requests and some construction documents, that type of stuff. You'll be dealing with Dana. She is actually on leave right now, but she'll be coming back soon. And hopefully the next webinar that we have, you'll be able to be introduced to her. Very excited to have her coming back. So just the ground rules, you know, we want you to participate. Again, like I said, I do talk pretty fast. I go through things pretty quickly. So if at any time I went through something too fast or you just didn't understand what I had said, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question. That's what we're here for. So the training materials in 2015, which is when I actually started, Jean had come out with this great CDBG grant manual. Everyone should have gotten one. If you did not get one, it is on our website, or you can email me and I can make sure that you get the documentation. In 2018, we actually updated our environmental review portion of the manual. And so that too, if you need copies of that, please let us know and we can make sure to get that to you. Like I said, I did send out the PowerPoint presentation earlier today in your meeting invite. Again, if you didn't receive it, let me know and I'll make sure to get that to you. These are just really the highlighted ones. The bolded ones are really what we're going to be going over today. The environmental review will be at the end of this PowerPoint section. Then I'll go over to the environmental review section of it. And then these are just really our agenda and learning objectives. You know, making sure that we understand that, you know, the grant administration of the project, the procurement, all of the steps that need to be taken and getting started. Does anyone have any questions so far? Okay. So understanding your grant agreement, setting up your project files, submitting and signing your documents, and then the documentation process. So right now, what I'm doing is going through everyone's grant agreements and making sure, or I'm sorry, your applications, and just making sure that we have all of the documentation that we need, that was required documents. So you may be getting emails from me just asking for more documentation. We are working on those grant agreements to get those out to you guys. We're hoping to get them out next week. We are waiting for the governor letters to come back to us so that we can give you a full package when that goes out to you. How that works is I will send out, we normally will scan in the full package and send that out to the grant administrators. We email that out to the grant administrators, and then the full package goes to your either your chair or your mayor. So in the email, it will say that the original went out into the mail, so that way that the grant administrators know to contact the, you know, the mayor's office or the chair's office to get those originals. The originals do need to come back to us signed, and so you're going to send back the signed grant agreement and then the certifications. And the certification is The grant administrator needs to sign off on the certification, and then sometimes you may want your financial department to sign off on the draw requests. And so you would have them sign off on the certifications, and then your mayor or your chair will sign off, just saying that they're giving you authorization to sign off on these forms. Setting up your files, you can do this electronically, you can do it hard copy. It's really up to you. We just ask that when we come out to monitor you, that everything is in one place so that it's easy for us to monitor your project. And then where it says here, set up your files according to the type of grant. So on public facility projects, you may have a separate file that has all of your construction documents in it, or your environmental review. And planning documents, you may have just a file that has all the planning documents that you have, or the plan in there. So that's what we're talking about when we're saying to set up your files. So with CDG, you do not get, we cannot start a project until a notice to proceed is given to you. If you have a public service grant or a planning grant, if your project was exempt or Cat X not subject to, those environmental reviews should have been with your application. So you don't really have to worry about too much. We'll again be reviewing those. If we get the, I apologize, if the environmental review and the grant agreement are both back signed by July 1, more than likely we'll give you a notice to proceed by July 1. If your project was a Cat X subject to or an environmental assessment, you have until September 30th to get those environmental reviews to us, and then we can send out a notice to proceed. You cannot do anything on the project until you have a notice to proceed. We can't pay anything prior to the notice to proceed. And that's pretty much what that says again. And you'll hear that throughout the presentation, is that you have to make sure to have your environmental review in before we can do any reimbursements or anything on your project, and do nothing until you get a notice to proceed from us. So planning grants are going to be a 12-month. These are planning and public service grants are 12 months. Construction grants, we did, it used to be 18 months, but we did do 24 months now. We've noticed that, you know, with construction, there are quite a bit of delays, weather, environmental assessments, that type of stuff. So there is now a 24-month time frame for construction grants. And this is just to recap that, you know, you're going to send in all of the documentation that we kind of just went over. You're going to send in your environmental review, do your notice to proceed, do your procurement or your bid process, and then you're going to do your SAM.gov or your DBARs with the program specialist. So for CDG, we check all cities, all counties. We have to be registered and active in SAM.gov. So we make sure that you're registered and active in SAM.gov. This goes for all of your contractors and any of your sub-recipients. They need to be registered and active in SAM.gov. So once the program specialist has done the DBAR, then you can move on to the next phase of your project, whether that's procurement or whether it's construction. Any questions on that portion? Okay, so we're going to move on to procurement process. So most projects are going to have some type of procurement, whether it is a consultant, whether it is a contractor, an engineer, any one of those, there will be some type of procurement process to go along with that. And so these are the 5 different methods of procurement, and we'll go through each one of those. For small businesses, or I'm sorry, small purchases, the federal is at 250,000, but the state is at 100,000. And so for us, we would go with the most stringent. So you're going to go with 100,000. So micro purchases, those are supplies and services that are valued less than $10,000. They're not open, or they're not a competitive bid process or quotations. You may want to check your policies and procedures, because this did go up, I believe, a few years ago. So there may be, you may have it at a lower rate. I believe, I want to say it was at like $300 or $3,500, but I'm not positive. So it did go up significantly. So you may want to double check those with your procurement methods. Small purchases, anything above 100,000, you need to make sure that you're advertising. Anything below, you do not need to do advertising for. Contracts between 25,000 and 1,000, we do ask that you get quotes. So HUD asks for 2 or more from a capable entities. We like to actually see 3. If you do 2, it's not a big deal, but the 3 is a little bit more competitive for us, because if you have 3 different ones, it just shows that you know, you're picking the most capable entity to do those. So that's what we ask for. Anything under 25,000 is an oral or written price bid. It's probably best to get a written bid or quote, and that's just so that we have that backup in our file. If an auditor comes and they're saying, well, how did you do this? Then we can tell them, well, this is how they came up with that. That was the most reasonable for them. This is just the NRS that states that if it's a construction for bid purposes, that you need to keep your files for 7 years. For CDBG, we keep our files a lot longer than 7 years. So if you have come to a project and it's, you know, you've already destroyed the files and it's 8 years after, you probably want to contact us. We probably will actually have that file in our state archives. So give us a call and we can work through that with you. So competitive sealed bid, this is going to be for your construction projects, that type of stuff. You're going to prepare the bid document. I'm not going to go a whole lot through this because we do have a construction section that we go through, but you're going to prepare your bid document and you're going to send the bid document to our office for review and approval. Really what we're looking at is making sure that you have all of the certifications that you need in there. We look at your tech specs. I'm going to be honest, I'm not a construction person, so I look at those and some of them go over my head and I kind of am like, I'm not really sure what that means. So I do ask a lot of questions, and so I apologize if you guys get a lot of emails from me asking what that means. So again, you're going to advertise anything above 100,000. Davis-Bacon is going to apply to pretty much any construction project you have, since Davis-Bacon applies at 200,000. So you're going to do your open bid, you're going to do your selection process, and then you're going to take that to your commission or your council to approve. And then you'll send the bid tabulation, the selection process, and the minutes approving the contractor to our office. And then any contractor, subcontractor, they all have to be debarred. So they all have to be registered and active in sam.gov. We have forms for everything. So you'll send a form to the program specialist just asking her to debar your contractors and their subcontractors. Do not enter into a contract until you know if they are registered and active in sam.gov. So once that's done, and then you would host your pre-construction conference. So for an RFP, request for proposal, you're just making sure that it's clear, accurate states, and the technical requirements for the goods and services. You're publicizing the RFP. HUD likes to see them out for at least 21 days. So you want to make sure that you're doing that and that you're posting or publishing for your 21 days. And then, and this is for RFPs and RFQs, you're going to have some type of criteria that you're going to rank them or score them on. And it's always good to have, when you're doing that, is to have those questions and have a point system that weighs the questions, similar to our CDBG advisory committee, where we have a point system. There's questions that are attached to it. And then it just makes it very clear when it's going when it's coming to us, why you picked the consultant that you've picked. And then again, you're going to conduct negotiations with the most reasonable and responsive entity, and go from there. And so we want to make sure that you're getting the best services for the price. So on to requests for qualifications. This is really going to be your engineers, your architects, any one of those consultants will be those also. And so you're going out to publish this for at least 21 days and making sure that the qualifications are coming back. You're starting with the highest ranking. That's why we say, make sure that you have your questions and then your point system, because then you're going to go with your highest ranking and negotiate the reasonable price. And if there's no agreement, then you're just going to kind of go down that list. Sole source providers, we don't do a lot with sole source. So if you have a sole source that you want to use, please contact our office so that we can discuss that. And then again, this is really just the reason we ask you to make sure that contract documents, RFPs, RFQs come to our office, is to make sure that all of the CDBG certifications are in there. Any questions? Okay, so now we're going to go over to construction management. And we did kind of go over a couple of these, your bidding process, taking that out to bid. Again, you have to make sure that you're going out to bid for at least 21 days, and this will kind of tell you that. So you've already selected your engineer or your architect. They're working on your bid document. You're making sure that you're putting placeholders for Davis-Bacon and state prevailing wage determinations, and you're sending those to our office for CDBG review and approval. And this is where it says to allow for the 21 days from the bid date to the bid opening. So you want to request wages from the program specialist as close to your bid date as possible, because 10 days prior to your bid opening, you're going to request a 10-day wage check. And that's just making sure that the wages have not changed from the time that you originally requested those. For CDBG, once you requested wages from us, that locks those wages in. So you're going to request that 10-day wage check. And a lot of times with state prevailing, they're not going to change. State prevailing only changes once a year. The only thing you may have is you may have to amend to include an amendment to the state prevailing. Davis-Bacon could possibly change. And so that's why we want to make sure that you're locking in the correct rates. So you've done your bid document, you've sent it out, you're getting ready to do the opening. You're wanting to make sure that you're ensuring that you have that criteria. Again, going back to the criteria, the questions, the point system, you have a selection process, and then you want to make sure that the bids are sealed until the day and time that you have selected to open those. And then you can conduct your bid opening. And then you're going to send the bid opening, the tabulation, the minutes again to the CDBG program administrator, just so that we can have that in the file. And then you're going to go and do a DBAR with the program specialist, just to say that, yes, they are in sam.gov, they're registered, they're not on the bar list. And then you can sign into a contract with them. And then you would schedule your pre-construction conference. It's not a requirement from HUD, but it is a requirement from the state CDBG office that you do a pre-construction conference. This just kind of heads off any problems with the project. If there's going to be any wage compliance problems, this kind of helps to make sure everyone's on the same page. And you guys normally don't have an issue with doing the pre-construction conferences. I think it's a good way for everyone to know what's happening with the project and keep informed. And so prior to your pre-construction conference, you're going to send the agenda and you're going to send the wage comparison worksheet to all participants. It is important that we have the wage comparison worksheet a couple of days prior to your pre-construction conference. And the only reason that is because if we check the wages from what we've given you to make sure that they match. And so if there's any questions that we have, we can have those addressed prior to the pre-construction conference. And then you're going to hold your pre-construction conference. Really, your grant administrator should be at these conferences, at the pre-construction conferences. A lot of times your public works will do the conference, but you should have your programs administrator there. Really, when we have an issue, if we have an issue with anything, that's who we're going to contact, is the program administrator, to make sure that they're aware and that they can get the answers that we need. So really, these are the topics that they would go over. And then we're just really on the line. We like to attend those via conference call. As you know, we're in Nevada. It's very hard for us to get out to rural Nevada for a lot of these. So if you could have a conference call line, we do like to attend those. And then if there's any other questions that arise with labor compliance, we're on the line and we can help with those if they're a specific CDBG question that cannot be answered. So monitoring after you've done your pre-construction conference, you've sent out your notice to proceed, you know the date that you're going to start the project. You're going to post your wage decision along with the Davis-Bacon posters, and you need to take a picture of those, and then you can email the picture into us, or you can mail them in. However you want to do that, that's fine. And then you're going to start certified payrolls. So really, we should be getting certified payrolls every week that your project is going. You have 7 days to get us in certified payrolls. Your grant administrator should be reviewing and signing off on those payrolls. And really, they're going to be the ones to catch any issues that are arising on any payrolls. And you can email those into us. You do not need to mail in hard copies on the payrolls. If you email them in with just an email that says I've reviewed and approved the payrolls, we normally will just print that out and stick it in the file. We also review the payrolls. So there's just a lot of people reviewing payrolls. And so if someone doesn't catch something, hopefully someone else will, or, you know, if there's an issue, we can stop it ahead of time. That also comes back to employee interviews. So HUD likes to see 1 per category on different times and days. I know a lot of people tend to do them on paydays because they have the payroll stubs, so they know what they're being paid. And we ask that you send in your employee payrolls when you're doing them. A lot of times we'll get them at the end of the project. And then if there's an issue, you have to try and go back and contact the contractor, and then the contractor has to hunt down the employee. If we get them throughout the project, if you send them in with the payrolls, then we can hopefully kind of cut that off a little bit and be able to say, hey, we need some more information on this employee interview, and kind of save you a little bit of time of having to go back to your contractor. So this is the information that we will be asking for when the grant closes out. I do have a closeout section for CDBG, so I'm not going to go too far into these. In the pre-construction conference, we do ask that you have an environmental review monitor, and that is just so if anything changes in the project, how does it affect the environmental review? Any change orders need to be sent to the CDBG office. We do not need to sign off on those change orders. We just need to have them so we can tell that they're not impacting the environmental review at any point. This is our wage comparison worksheet. So I just wanted to kind of go over it with everyone so that you can see it. Up here where it says 5/8 or 4/10. If your employees are choosing to work 4/10s, we do have a form that they need to fill out, just acknowledging, yes, we understand that we're working 4/10s. And then on this form, where the federal rate is your Davis-Bacon rate. If you are going through the wage classification and there is a classification in there that you cannot find, you can go ahead and put it on here, but we would have to ask from DOL, the Department of Labor, for a wage classification for them. DOL is taking up to 3 to 6 months to get those classifications to us. So that's why we ask that you do that at the beginning of the project, and why we ask for you to send in the wage comparison worksheet to us prior to the pre-construction conference, so that we can have that conversation at the pre-construction conference. This is really just kind of going over that and saying how DOL is taking 3 to 6 months to get those wage additional classification requests to us. So again, we just wanted to get those done at the beginning. If it happens in the middle, then, you know, there's not much that we can do about it. We'll still send in the form and get those classifications for everyone. This is the form, and what we do is, so the form, when you tell me that you need an additional wage classification, I'll send you the form and you're going to fill out the form and then email it back to me. And I actually am the one that emails it over to the Department of Labor. The only thing that I have, and you want to make sure that you have your wage decision attached to it. You can do state prevailing and Davis-Bacon. A lot of times what people do on the wage classification, if it's not in the Davis-Bacon wages, they'll go to state prevailing and see if it's in there, and they just put in that classification with the fringe benefits in there. The one thing on this form is where it says prime contractor. That is the only one that you should be putting in there. Do not ever put your subcontractors in there, because then it only applies to that subcontractor. So we always tell you to do it for the prime contractor, because then that just kind of trickles down to all of the other contractors. So this is the certified payroll form that needs to be turned in. If a contractor has their own system, we're perfectly fine with that, as long as all of the information on their form matches the information on this form. And you can always send us a copy of, excuse me, send us a copy of their payroll form, and we can approve it and tell you, yes, this is okay to use for your CDBG project. With this form, this statement of compliance always needs to be attached. Even if they're using their own form, this needs to be attached to their form. The one thing that we do notice, and I'm going to go back to the certified payroll, is in the other section. If they have anything in the other section, they must explain that out to us. We need to know what the others are. So on the statement of compliance, in the little, right here in these little lines, you can go ahead, and what they would do is they would put the employee's name, the amount, and what the deduction is for. The other thing that we have is on step 4 right here. It's regarding fringe benefits. And a lot of times people forget to click on one of those. So you need to make sure that when you're reviewing payrolls that all of the boxes are complete. So if they are providing a fringe benefit plan to them, we need a copy of the fringe benefit plan. We actually have a form if you want that form to have them fill out. And then if they're providing, if they're not, and they're paying the fringe benefits in cash, you don't have to do the form. The other thing with on this form is that if anyone but the owner is signing off on the form, the owner must give certification to whoever is signing off on the form. And again, we have a form for that, that the owner can sign off and just say, I certify that this person is able to sign the payroll forms. So for wage restitution, we haven't had a lot of wage restitutions, and I think that that is because we do the pre-construction conference, so everything is kind of up there, and we're reviewing payrolls every week, so we all kind of know what's happening throughout the project. But if there is a wage restitution, you need to compute the wages, send the discrepancy to CDBG. You need to notify the prime contractor in writing, and then allow the contractor 30 days to correct the underpayment. They also need to send in, the contractor will need to send in a revised certified payroll, and up at the top it would just say revised, and then they need to send in copies of canceled checks, just showing that the employee that was underpaid did receive the funding or did receive their payment. Any questions on construction? I know I went by really fast on that. Okay. And I am hoping to do, hopefully this summer, do a little bit more in-depth webinars on construction and procurement processes. So we're going to go through financial management. Single audit threshold is at 750,000. So CDBG has our standards that trickle down to the local governments, and then their standards are going to trickle down to any of their subrecipients. So we're just making sure that everyone is following the correct rules and regulations for federal and state contracts. So audits, a lot of times you will go out and procure your own auditor, and we're just making sure that you are sending in the audits to us. And if they're over 750, you don't actually have to send in the whole audit if you choose not to. If it's on your website, you can just send us that link to your website, and then we can go on the website and do it that way. Or if you want to send it to us in a PDF, that's fine with us also. So auditor selection, again, you're going to make sure that you're doing a procurement for that, and that you're getting you're making sure that it's a CPA or a licensed public accountant that's doing those. And a lot of you guys are pretty good about having your own auditors come in and do your audits.
Carrie, as a business owner who's paying wages.
That person. Okay, I just kind of went over this, that we're making sure that the financial management standards are trickling down to the local governments, and those are going down to the subrecipients, and everyone is following the correct financial management standards. And you guys have probably heard me talk about the 9-month rule forever since I first started with CDBG. It is very important for us to make sure that we are getting draw requests in a timely manner. It's hard for HUD to go back to Congress and say we want to give more money to CDBG if we're not spending the money in a timely manner. So that's why we have that 9-month rule of getting draw requests in by March 31st. It's not, we understand that things happen, with construction projects. You may have environmental review, you may not have anything to draw on yet, but we will email you the beginning of March and just say, just a reminder that your first draw request is due March 31st. And then if you just email us back and explain the situation to us of we're not going to have our first draw request, we totally get it. With COVID, a lot of things just kind of halted. So a lot of grantees weren't able to get draw requests in by March 31st. And that's completely fine. As long as you're communicating with us, normally we know what the problem is and why a draw request is not coming in on time. So that's okay with us. Again, communication. So budget controls, each individual grant has their own draw request. And that's why it's very important that when you're doing your application, that your budget is very clear. You don't want it to be too broad, but you don't want it to be too constricting also. So we take your budget from your application and then we put it into the draw request form, since it's broken out into tasks. And that's really kind of how we track your budget too, to see if you're getting ready to go over or under on any tasks. So, and we actually have the form that I will show you. But your amounts, your tasks, your amounts, they all go in there. If you see that you're getting ready to be over budget, if you're doing a draw request and you see that you're going to be, $5,000 over in task 1, all you have to do is email me and say, Jessica, I see that I'm going to be over in task 1. Can I shift funding around? If it's under 20% of the grant, you can just email us that in. If it's going to be over 20% of the grant, it does need to be on city county letterhead. And then you need to mail that or email that into me on city county letterhead. And it's just really a formal letter saying the reason why we're going to be over budget and what tasks we want to shift from. We don't normally have too many that go over 20%. And if they do, it's, you know, a pretty good, we understand that they're estimates that you guys first did when you did your applications. So that's not, again, you're not gonna get penalized if you ask for us to do budget changes for you or anything like that. We understand that that happens with all grants. Okay, so again, like I said, you each get a draw request form. We'll be working on those mid-June to get those out. Hopefully the beginning of July, we'll get those out. And then the project ledger, so there's two tabs there. There's a project ledger and then your actual draw request form. The project ledger is really the one that's going to be used as like your tracking form, your budget tracking form. Cash management, we're just making sure that, you know, everything's in compliance, that grantees are not profiting from CDBG, and we'll kind of go a little bit more into that when we go into invoicing. Two ways that you can actually request payment from us: reimbursement. And reimbursements, you've already paid the invoices, you just want us to give you the funding back. You need to show us canceled checks, any type of proof of payment. I know a lot of cities and counties have a system that will show this payment went out on this day. It just needs to say that that payment has actually cleared. And then you're going to send us in copies of the invoices, and if there's any travel, copies of the travel documentation. And then the second way is an obligation. Again, we also understand that not every city or county can do a $500,000 draw request and then ask us to reimburse them. They need the money up front. All you need to do with that is send us in copies of those invoices that equal up to that 500,000. And then once you've gotten the funding, you're then going to send us in proof of payment of that. And that's really kind of what this says. And we're just double checking that, you know, the invoices that we've got match with the cancel check that you're sending. So this is your draw request form that's going to go out to you. Most of the grant administrators have seen this because you've gotten it for many, many years from me. So this first one right here with the blue on it, that is going to be your project ledger. And so the blue is the only spot in the document that you should be able to go in and put your numbers in there. So once you go in and you add for request one, you put an amount in there, it automatically is going to take that from your total. So you should see where the red is, you should see that total automatically going down. And then it will transfer over to your reimbursement request form, which is the second form here. And it's the only thing on this form that you need to do is up here at the top, you're going to put the to and from dates. And then if you've changed your address or anything, and if you've changed your address, you need to make sure that the address that is on file for the state is the same one that you're putting in there. If they're different, that will hold up a draw request with our business office. And then you're going to, at the bottom, either be the preparer or the approver. If the grant administrator is the one preparing and approving, all you have to do is just sign the approved spot. A lot of times, if you have a subrecipient, the subrecipient will be the one that's preparing the document, but the grant administrator is the one that's approving the document, or your financial person will also be the one that can approve the document, as long as they're on the certification that authorizes them to do that. So when we do the draw request, these are the things that we're checking, is just to make sure that the certification letter has the correct people on there. If you've changed grant administrators, if your financial people change, you just need to send us in a new updated form. And if you have more than one grant, you don't have to send in that form for each individual grant. You can put all your grant numbers on one form and then sign it. And what we'll do is we'll just make a copy and highlight the grant number and stick it in that file. So you're not having to do multiple for the same grant. One of the big thing is the single grant. Is the grant still valid? Because a lot of times the grant may expire, and then we'll get your grant agreement in. So we're kind of watching that too. When your grant is expiring, we're going to probably be sending out emails beginning of June to let everyone know your grant is going to expire at the end of the month. Do you need an extension, or are you going to be doing your final draw request? And then we give you the date that we need your final draw request in by. So common errors that we find is reporting the single reporting period as a single date. So a lot of times on that reimbursement form, a lot of people will put July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. That we need it to be when the invoices are actually being paid or being done for. So if you had work done from July 1 to August 1, that should be the time period that's on your draw request form, and your invoices should be the work done between July 1 and August 1. The reimbursement, again, we're going back to the budget controls. If we see that you're in the negative on a task, we'll probably email you and say, hey, we noticed that you're negative in task 1. Where do you want to shift the funding from to make up that difference? This is just telling you what is allowed and allowable costs and what are unallowable costs for CDBG. If you ever have any questions, please feel free to give us a call and we can talk you through any of those grants or any of the reimbursements. If you're sitting there going, I'm not really positive about that, just give us a call and we can talk it through. So invoicing, when you hire a consultant, if it's any type of consultant, an engineer, an architect, if they're doing your environmental assessment, the city and a county can do a lump sum contract with those consultants. However, when the invoicing comes to CDBG, that invoice needs to be broken out by task, position, hourly rate, and hours worked. And I do have, if any of you need examples of those invoices, you can email me and I can give those to you. Again, all consultants have to be debarred. All vendors need to be debarred. If an invoice comes in from your main consultant and they have another consultant on that invoice, that other consultant needs to make sure that they are in SAM.gov, registered and active in SAM.gov, and we need a copy of that invoice also. And then the consultant cannot add any markups to the invoices. We've seen where they've added like a 15% markup. Really, they should be adding that markup into their contracted amount. CDBG is not going to pay the markup amount on those. So with travel, some of your contract or consultants are going to travel to you. CDBG only pays the GSA rate and for hotel and for meals. So we will need receipts for your hotel. If there's airline, rental car, gas receipts, any of that, we're going to need receipts. The only thing we don't need receipts on is going to be meals, because we're just going to pay the GSA rate for that area that they are in. We are also not going to do any markups, or I'm sorry, any add-ons. So if they rent a car, if they have satellite radio in there, CDBG is not going to reimburse for that. Also flight upgrades, any of that type of stuff. And then on mileage rate, we're going to pay the state mileage rate, which right now is at 57 cents. What we've been asked from our business office is that you do a map quest, or your consultant does a map quest to show their mileage from point A to point B. If they're going to, and I used this yesterday, if they're going from Reno to Urington, and then the consultant has to drive around in Urington, that's fine if they're going to do point A to point B. And I apologize, I don't know the mileage from Reno to Urington, but if it's 200 miles from Reno to Urington, they've map quested that. And then they've asked for, 15 extra miles because they had to drive around Urington. That's fine. But if they're asking for another 100 miles, we're going to probably question and say, well, what did they do for another 100 miles? So just keep that in mind when you're setting up your contracts with your consultants. And if you ever want us to review those contracts, please just email us over and ask us to. I know some of our grantees have done that, where they've asked us to review the contract and just make sure that that everything is in there that should be in there, and we have no problems doing that. Okay, so just documents that you want to make sure that you have in your financial office is just making sure that you have all of the source documents. And when you're sending them to CDBG, you're making sure that all source documents are in there, and then all the backup you have is based on costs that are incurred. So these should always be in your financial records, your grant agreement, any related correspondence, any extensions, any budget requests, your certification letters, your notice to proceed, any draw requests with the supporting documents. We always scan in a copy of your draw request. So you want to make sure that you have a copy of it also. And if we have any issues, that we can go back and forth and talk with you guys about those. If we're missing a page, there could be a time that we're missing a page and we're not adding up to the correct amount that you guys requested, then we can go through them. Any questions on financial management? Okay, so I'm going to go through acquisition and relocation. It's going to be kind of quick because it's really over displacement. And we strongly recommend that grantees do not undertake a project that has displacement. If you choose to, though, excuse me, you need to have an anti-displacement policy and make sure that that gets sent to us so that we can review it. And then if you are going to displace, you need to make sure that your documentation has these 4 on them: the race, ethnicity, handicap status, and the address that you've relocated them to. And that goes for businesses. You just want to make sure that you're documenting the impact that you've had on that business. And then if they're a woman or minority business. Any questions on that? Okay, monitoring. So monitoring, we do like to do site monitoring. COVID made it a little hard for us to go out and do some site monitoring, but I'm hoping to kind of get out there this summer and do monitoring with some of our grant administrators. I'm always going to make sure that we set up a suitable time for the grant administrators, and we will notify you in writing, probably email, of the areas and the files that we're going to want to monitor. We will also send out a monitoring checklist, really, of what we're going to be reviewing when we come out to look at your look at your files. And then once we're done with that, we'll send out a letter that just says if we had any concerns, or most times, every time I've ever been gone out monitoring, I've never had any issues with files. So it's just a letter that says your files were in good order. Thank you very much. And this is just really the checklist that we kind of are going to go through when we're going out there to monitor. Any questions on monitoring? Okay, so we're going to go to project closeout. So when we go to close out a project, we're just making sure that you fulfilled your responsibility, all funds have been spent, or if they have not been spent, that we've received a de-obligation letter from you, just explaining that, you know, we weren't able to spend all the funding that we received. And this is really a closeout checklist that we go through in our office. These are documents that we'll need for the projects. We do pretty much a file monitoring. Anytime we get a quarterly report, anytime we get a payroll, anytime we get a draw request, we are doing monitoring on your file just to make sure all the documents are in there that we need. So if we're missing documents after you've fulfilled your responsibilities and all of the funds have been spent, then any documents that we need, we're going to email you and say, we're ready to close out your project. These are the documents that we still need, and we always attach the documents that we need for you. And then these are just going to be ones mainly for construction. And then if it's a planning grant, a copy of that plan, or if you don't want to send in the whole copy of the plan, you can send in the PDF form of it. We can put it in your file if you want to send us a link that we can just go and look at the link, that's fine also. You don't have to send in a hard copy of the plan. So this is really just kind of going over our closing procedures for us. Again, we're desk monitoring that file at all stages of it. And then if we do a site monitoring, and then we'll close it out in our system IDIS, and then send you out a closeout letter that says your project is now closed out. Please keep your file from 5 to 7 years, or keep your file 5 to 7 years from the date of the closeout letter that you've gotten from us. So for us, we have to keep our files 5 years from the date that we close out the program year with HUD. So when I was saying that, you know, we probably have your files. If you can't find them, we probably still have them, because we just closed out I think it was 2015 before Jean left. She had just closed out 2015. And so that would be, we'll have those files until 2025. Involving the public. Any questions on project closeout? Sorry. Okay. So involving the public, really what we're asking is that you just make sure the public knows about your project. If you know, it's through social media, special events, project signs, any of that, we just want you to make sure that your community knows about these projects. Again, brochures, newsletters, excuse me. And then citizen participation. You guys normally do these. The citizen participation is your public notices and public meetings at the beginning of your project when you're doing your application status or application public comment periods. Those are your public's, your citizen participation. CDBG has a citizen participation plan. So if you want to adopt our plan, that's fine. If not, you need to make sure that you have your own plan in place and that it's been adopted. And so just going to go through those. Civil rights, equal opportunity, fair housing. Normally your HR people are the ones that handle your, are going to handle these issues. So, you know, every federal grant, you have to make sure that you're making it fair to everyone for hiring, equal opportunity in hiring, fair housing, actions to affirmative further fair housing, ADA accessibility. So if you probably do have plans, and when we go out to monitor, those are just something that we're going to look at. We just want to know who the person is, that if there's any questions that come up, we need to go to and talk to that person. Civil rights, again, these are all the ones that you guys need to make sure that you have plans in place. We have plans in place. I'm going to go through those. You know, you must record these. And Silver State Fair Housing is really the only housing in the state of Nevada. And what we're hoping to do is maybe next year do a fair housing, having them do like a fair housing workshop for all of our grantees that you can go to and get trained on fair housing. I'm sure you've all been trained on fair housing, but it's always a good refresher. Every time I go to it, I learn something new and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. So again, equal employment opportunity. And then the Civil Rights Act, you want to make sure that we're not discriminating against race, color, national origin. And then it was to add sex, religion, or age. And Nevada actually has ancestry, sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. So we're wanting to make sure that we're not discriminating against anyone. So Section 3, they did come out with a new rule on Section 3. And so any project that is $200,000 or more needs to do Section 3, needs to report on Section 3. If it's below 200,000, you do not have to do Section 3 any longer. The difference with reporting on Section 3 is before it used to be talking about new hires, and now it's actually going off of actual total labor hours. And so that's kind of a big big thing for all of our contractors, because they're used to just filling out this one form that says, you know, we hired this many people and this many of them were Section 3 or however, but now you have to go through the whole total labor hours for that project and then see if you've met your benchmark. We do have, we've just updated our spreadsheets and I can send those out to everyone, and hopefully that will kind of help everyone transition to the new Section 3 rule a little bit easier. And so, yeah, if you have any questions on Section 3, please feel free to give me a call. We're still kind of working through a lot of it. It actually goes into effect July 1st of 2021, but any contracts that were done after November 20th of 2020 needs to have the new Section 3 rule in it. We did not know about this until just recently, and so I just redid a bunch of stuff for our Section 3 certifications that need to go in the contract documents. So if you need copies of those, please email me and let me know and I can get those to you.
Hey, Jessica, on the Section 3, and maybe you're going to go into it now, who fills out those Section 3 forms? That's the contractor and subcontractor?
Yeah, actually the contractor should fill out that form.
Okay.
And their subcontractors are going to need to also, because it's working on their total hours for that project.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So with the cities and counties, I would take a look at the new Section 3 rule, because there may be things that you need to update in your plans. If you have Section 3 plans, there may be stuff that you need to update in those. There is going to be a training on Section 3, I believe it's June 8th. And if you want the link to that, it is done through the federal government. So if you want the link to that, let me know, and I'll go ahead and email that over to you so that you will have that. Excuse me. Again, architectural barriers, ADA compliant projects. I know Carson City does a lot of ADA projects, and so does the City of Fallon's done a couple of ADA projects and sidewalk projects. So if you guys need any help with those ADA projects, and CDBG will fund those. So that's pretty great. 504, you really want to make sure that you know who your 504 compliance person is. That's one of the checklist, one of the items on our monitoring that we'll probably go out and ask if you have an updated 504 plan or who the person is that we would need to speak with. Displacement, we've already gone over displacement, so I'm not going to go over it again. And then, so any questions on that? Okay. Any questions at all? Okay. So I am going to go into our next presentation. Okay, so I'm going to go over the environmental review. I'm going to grab up some water. The environmental review, and again, these were sent to you earlier today, and if you didn't receive them, please email me. At the back of it, it does have SHPO's slideshow. They did a presentation for us a few years ago, and so I just kept it in there for more of a reference for everyone. If you have any questions, Robin Reed is really good to contact over at SHPO, and she can help you with any questions that you may have. Again, this is just our contact information, and now this is the environmental review portion of the webinar. And then the chapter 2 was revised in 2018. And then we had sent out the hard copy to add to your manual. If you didn't receive the hard copy, let us know. We probably still have more hard copies that we can email out or mail out to you, or we can email the documents to you. So these are just, understanding the different levels of the environmental review, the process, and the monitoring. Again, going back to the monitoring, it's mainly for the construction grants and making sure that the construction, if there's any change orders, that it's not affecting the impact of the environmental review. So if you were at a Cat X subject 2 and you're doing something that would then move it up to an environmental assessment, that's really what we're looking at when we're looking at those change orders, and making sure that you have someone that's going to be able to monitor to say, okay, if you're doing this, how does it affect the environmental assessment or review? So these are, again, we've kind of gone over a lot of this. You're going to get your grant award if you've already done your exempt or your Cat X not subject to. You will get your notice to proceed July 1, as long as we have in the signed grant agreement. And then no cost will be reimbursed prior to the notice to proceed. We've already kind of talked about all the cross-cutting things for CDBG, Davis-Bacon, fair housing. Environmental review is one of them. And so that's just one that we have to make sure that we are following. The week of the 7th, I actually will be doing a training with our big organization that helps with, it's called COSDA, and it's one of our, they're kind of like our trainers for CDBG, and they're doing a lot of the cross-cutting webinars for us. So I may have some other information for you after I do those, and I'll make sure to get that information out to anyone. Some of these slides are going to be kind of a little bit duplicate, so just bear with me on those. We just want to make sure that we're getting it, that you cannot do anything on your project until you receive a notice to proceed from us. So the environmental review record, this is the document that you do and you submit to CDBG. And so for exempt and Cat X, it's the same document. For the Cat X not subject to, it's the same document that you're going to do. This is just, and that document is actually really a simple document to do. It's when you get into the Cat X subject to and your environmental assessment, they're not difficult documents. It's just, it requires more of you to do. So, and then we ask that, like, if you're doing a construction project, really think about the entire project, because for environmental reviews, those are good for 5 years. So if you are doing if you're doing a construction project and you only do one section of it, then you're going to have to go back and do an environmental assessment for the other section. But if you at the beginning have done the environmental assessment for the entire property or the entire project, then you're not having to redo it unless something has drastically changed in the environment. Then you will not have to do another environmental review. You do need to make sure that you're reviewing that. If it's a phased project, if you have phase 1 and you've done the environmental assessment, that's going to carry over to your phase 2 with CDBG, as long as that portion of the project was in the original environmental assessment. So this is really going over that we need to review and approve the environmental review prior to giving you a notice to proceed. And do not spend any funds. We cannot reimburse anything prior to the date of the notice to proceed. So there's 5 levels of environmental review: exempt, categorically excluded, not subject to, and category excluded, subject to, environmental assessment, and then the environmental impact statement. I've been here for 6 years, and I have Not seen an environmental impact statement. I have heard that they are very time consuming and can take a very long time to do. So, and yeah, so I have not seen one come through yet. Okay, so really the grant administrator is the one that is going to make the determination of what level of environmental review their project is. And then you're going to send that to us to either for us to concur, or if we don't agree with you, we're going to have a conversation with you and just say, well, you know, the project really falls under this one. So if you want to contact us prior to you doing your environmental review and just say, hey, can we have a conversation and find out what it really is, then we can do that. So exempt activities, those are really going to be your studies, your engineering costs, your environmental assessments, your like if you do a plan, like a City of Wells does they did a Wells corridor plan. Those are going to be your exempt activities. And then your documentation for those, it's the same document as a categorically excluded, not subject to. And really there's 3 boxes that you have to actually put comments in. It's airport zone. And so you need to make sure that you do the military airport. And then you also do MapQuest from your project site to the closest airport to you. And then there's coastal barrier. What I've been telling everyone, we had this really great kind of page that we could put in with the environmental reviews. Well, we've not been able to find that page anywhere. That just shows that we're not a coastal state. So what we've been telling people, because this is what HUD has told us, is that just in there, just put in that it's Nevada is not a coastal barrier state per HUD Region 9. And then that will that is what it needs to go into your coastal barrier. And then again, for floodplain, you're going to want to make sure to go to the floodplain website and print out a copy of the map or whatever they have for you. And for those 2, they really need to be put into your application. So for categorically excluded, you know, you have the subject to or the not subject to. And the not subject to is really, these are tenant-based and affordable housing, pre-development costs, that type of stuff. And then again, the not subject to, same form, same maps as an exempt project. Okay, so subject to, if you're doing a subject to project, this is acquisition, repair, improvement, reconstruction that does not increase the size or the capacity of by 20% or more. So just keep that in mind, and that there's it doesn't involve any change in the land use. And then you can do this project, or you can do categorically excluded subject to. Excuse me. So there's 3 ways that it can go. It can convert once you've done it. It can convert over to an exempt project, or it cannot convert and you need to issue a notice of intent to release of funds and obtain our approval for that. Or if it doesn't do either one of those, it might mean that you need to prepare an environmental assessment. So categorically excluded converts to exempt. Really, you're still sending out all the letters to the external reviewers. You're still completing the worksheet. There's no mitigation measures. So on the very last form, you're just going to put that it's converted over to exempt. For exempt, categorically excluded, and categorically excluded, not subject to or subject to, you need to make sure that you have a cover letter on all of those that just says the level of determination. We do have samples of letters if you want to see a couple of samples that people have done that we thought those are pretty good samples. We can email those over to you. For categorically excluded, subject to, when you send the package into us, you need to make sure that you have that cover letter, copies of the letters and the maps that were sent out to the reviewers, and then the responses back, and then the statutory worksheet. This is really gonna be for pretty much everything. You're gonna, from this point on, for categorically excluded subject to, it's pretty much the same in an environmental assessment. We're really looking for the same items also. So with exempt, categorically excluded, not subject to, categorically excluded, subject to that converts over to exempt, you do not need to do any public noticing. There's no requirement for that. You're just going to send that in to us, and we're going to review and do a notice to proceed. Okay, so if it does not convert, that means that probably one of these three are going on. It's floodplain, that you have to do an 8-step process, historical mitigation, or any other kind of mitigation issues that are happening. So really, again, you're going to pretty much do very similar to just a regular categorically excluded project. You're going to prepare the document, the cover letter, that's going to describe the project. It's going to have maps of the area of the project. You're going to need to do a 106 consultation with SHPO. They do have on their website, they do have a checklist that you can take, and I actually think that that might be their 106 checklist. And I would very highly recommend looking at that and seeing what they're asking for. And then you're going to prepare the statutory worksheet. So if you have to do an 8-step process, you must publish that process and that notice. So, and then you're going to, again, complete the worksheet, and then you're going to do a finding of no significant impacts unless you have comments on the 8-step process. Okay, so if the project affects resorts show mitigation, you need to publish the notice of intent to release of funds. And there is actually a great kind of chart in this PowerPoint presentation that tells you how many days that you must publish or post for each one of them. Once you're done with that, then you would send it to CDBG, and then we have our comment period also that we do. Once we've done all of the comment periods for those, then we'll send out an authorization to use grant funds and a notice to proceed to go with that. You're going to place all the documentation in the environmental review record. Really, in the environmental review records, you want to make sure that whoever picks up that document understands that if there's compliance issues or if there are no compliance issues. And again, we have great examples of some that they have done, and we can send those out to you. So once that's done and you've received your notice to proceed, you can move on to your next step. Okay, so if it's none of these, then it's going to be an environmental assessment. So an environmental assessment is required for new construction or improvements of more than 20% in size or capacity, or, and it's not on here, if you are digging on undisturbed land, this is what we've now been told. So just remember that an environmental assessment is going to be, if you are digging and the land has never been touched before, you're going to need to do an environmental assessment. Again, the steps are pretty similar to a CADX subject to. A lot of times when you're doing environmental assessment, a lot of grantees will end up getting a consultant to do that environmental assessment for them. And that's fine if that's what you want to do. There's no problems with that. You can do it yourself if you want to. I know that when you're doing the Section 106 process, sometimes that can get a little cumbersome. And so I know a lot of people would choose to have a consultant do that for them. With the Section 106, you need to make sure that you're doing your tribal consultations also, because that, when I get any questions back from a grantee that says, I'm not sure what they're asking for from SHPO, normally it's that the tribal consultation has not been done. So make sure that you're sending your letters out to the tribes and that you're just tracking that, I've sent this letter out. From what I've understood from grantees, they don't normally respond back, but at least you show that you've sent out that tribal consultation to them, and you can show SHPO that you've sent that out also. Okay, so you're going to, if there's no significant impact, you can go ahead and publish the combined FONSI and the notice of release of funds. You're going to put together, again, your environmental review record. You're going to submit that to the state, and then we're going to do our process and then send out your authority to use grant funds and a notice to proceed. Wetlands and floodplain notices must be published. You cannot post those, so you have to make sure that you're publishing those and that you're sending copies to the interested agencies and interested persons on those. So this is the chart that I was talking about. So when you are publishing or posting, just remember that if you publish, the day that it publishes, the day after publication is the day that will start your 15 days. So if you publish on the 1st, then you're going to start your 15 days on the 2nd. And that goes for all of them, that if you do that, you want to make sure that you are accounting for that next day. That's where when we were doing a training, one of the trainers for environmental review, they said that that's where they find a lot of the compliance issues, is that the person is taking the day that it's published and going from that day forward. And so they're ending their public comment period a day early. So we just want to make sure that we're going above and beyond that. So they've always told us, make sure it's the day after that you've published. And then this is just really the procedures on how to do it. You're determining the conditions. You're just, you're describing the project needs. And these really, when you go to do your environmental review record, it says project description. You want to be pretty descriptive in there. You want to make sure that you are putting the entire project in there. Again, we're looking at the aggregation of the project and making sure that if you come back for a second, third round, your original environmental review can kind of follow with you, as long as there's no huge environmental impact to the environmental record. You may have to go back and update your environmental assessment to include something, or to talk about, like maybe if there's another issue that you've had, then you may need to update it, but then you wouldn't have to do the full document again. So you're just addressing, again, we're going through the process and just addressing kind of what we've already talked about. This just kind of gives it into a step form. And then again, if there's no significant impacts, the FONSI is noticed. And we actually have copies of like examples of FONSIs and that type of stuff. So if you ever need any of that, please make sure to email us, and we can find those for you, find those documents for you, so that we can give it. We don't want you to have to recreate the wheel if you don't need to. If we have that document, we would rather be able to send that out to you. And I know we're all very busy this time, so we have a lot of documents, a lot of forms that we can send out to you. Again, a lot of times, so we work closely with USDA and revolving loan with water resources. And so if you have those partners, let us know, and we can talk with them and see if maybe we can do a combined environmental assessment, or if we can do the environmental assessment and they can use it for their portion of the project. Let's have that conversation. with them and see. We work very closely with USDA. And so this is your packet. We've already kind of talked about everything, but when you send your packet into us, it should have your cover letter. It should have your environmental review letter, record. And then behind the environmental review record, it should always have the corresponding documentation. And on the environmental review record, you really should have where it's, so your first one is airport, I think it's airport hazards. So in the corner, put attachment A, and then behind that, you're going to have your attachment A, B, C, and D. So that's really how it should kind of go. D is your clean air is actually going to be like attachment D, and that will be the one where you're actually having to send letters out to agencies. And what you're going to want to do is put those in kind of order. So you have your response back from the agency, you have your letter that you sent them, and then you also have all your attachments and maps that are with it in one little package, and that's all for attachment D. And you can put it in on those, you can put them in however you want, but we just want to make sure that it's kind of, it's easy to go through and say, yep, you have all of the documentation you need. Your environmental review record matches with what the letter says from their response. That's kind of what we're looking at, and that's really what this right here is telling you. And again, it's telling you kind of the same thing. So, so an environmental review, a categorically excluded, subject to the notice of intent to release of funds. This is if it does not convert to exempt. The comment period, if you put it in the newspaper, is 7 days. So published on the 1st, your 7 days starts on the 2nd. It's 7 calendar days, a minimum of 10 if you've posted or mailed those out. So if you're posting it on places, then again, you're posting on the 1st, the 2nd starts your 10 days. And this is really going through the that chart that I had. This is just breaking it out a little bit more. So I'm not going to read into all of these because it's already on that chart. And I actually print out the chart. I have a spreadsheet. So if you guys ever want a spreadsheet, I probably have a spreadsheet, but I put all of those dates in. And so if you just populate a date, if you just put a date into the spreadsheet, it's going to tell you when you need to send documentation to the CDBG, and then the day that we have to send you your notice to proceed. And we got this spreadsheet when we did our training, and I just thought it was a really great, it was very helpful to me. When Jean was here, she would always do the notice to proceed. So when I started taking them over, I was starting to, you know, feel a little overwhelmed on the dates. And so that spreadsheet really kind of helped me. So then this, again, we're going through we have a 15-day objection period for HUD, for the state HUD. And so that spreadsheet will tell you, if you send it to me on this day, my time will start the next day, and I have 15 days. And so on like May 30th, I have to send you out your notice to proceed. My public comment period starts, and I'll send you out a notice to proceed. It kind of is a reminder to me also to make sure that I'm getting those notice to proceeds out to everyone and getting them to you guys on time so that you can start your projects. Monitoring, we've kind of already talked about this. Really, we're just making sure that that someone is monitoring the environmental review, whether it's an assessment throughout the project. So we're not so worried about it if we're looking at an exempt project, because there's no environmental impact. But if it's a categorically excluded, subject to, or an environmental assessment, we're going to want to make sure that someone is monitoring the project to make sure that there is no environmental changes that need to be addressed. So on categorically excluded converts to exempt, I'm sorry, subject to converts to exempt, categorically excluded subject to, and environmental assessments. Those projects, the environmental review are due to us by September 30th, and that should say 2021. I apologize. Those should be to us by September 30th of 2021. And if we see that we haven't received them in the beginning of September, we'll just send out a reminder saying, just a reminder that your environmental review is due to us by the end of the month. And you know, sometimes they don't get to us by the end of that month, and we, you know, it could be that there's something that has held it up. Like if it's, you know, SHPO consultation, or if it's mitigation with, you know, endangered species, something like that, then we've contacted you. We know the situation. So we're kind of flexible, but we want to make sure too that your project is being implemented on time and it's moving forward smoothly. So this right here is the website for the section 106 and the tribal consultation. And then also the HUD Exchange. HUD Exchange is what we use a lot. They have some great tools for environmental review. They actually have some great tools for just CDBG in general. If you go onto their website, environmental review, they have webinars that you can listen to. They have documents that you can review. So I highly encourage you to go ahead and take a look at their website when you have free time, of course. So that is going to be the end of the environmental review section. Like I said in the beginning, I did include the state historic preservation presentation that they did a few years ago for us, just for more of a reference, and then you can contact them if you have any further questions on their presentation. So do I have any questions? I went through that pretty fast, and it's a lot of information. So again, if you have any questions, if you think about it, you know, at 10 o'clock at night, go ahead and email me, and then we can either have a phone conversation or I can email you back. I won't email you back at 10 o'clock at night though, so just so you know. Any questions about anything that I've gone over? Okay, well then that's going to end the presentation. I really appreciate you all taking time out of your busy schedules to be on this webinar. Again, if you have any questions, any concerns, please feel free to give me a call, email me. I'm always open to talking to people about their projects. So if there's no questions, then I am going to go ahead and end it there. Thank you, everyone.